All right, we're going to go ahead and get started on talking about the second page of different science tools and how they work. And remember, as we're doing this, you can also refer to your science tools picture. And these are very similar. Some of them are on here, and there also are some different ones. So make sure that you're looking at both of these when we are talking about science tools this week. So we're going to go ahead and start with the microscope. I'm sure you've seen what a microscope is before. So this is what kind of a tool that many people think of when they think of a scientist. So a microscope is used to make things that are so teeny tiny larger so that we can see them and investigate them. So our description says this tool is used to magnify an object that you cannot see with your eyes. It's so teeny tiny that you cannot even see it. So some of the things that a scientist might study with this would be things like germs. And inside your body, you have blood cells, so they might be looking at cells. Maybe the inside of a stem. And some scientists, like if they're investigating with the police department, they might even look at hair. So those are like, they want to make those things so much larger, because when I look at my hair, just a single teeny tiny strand of hair, I don't see anything. But when they magnify that, they can see all kinds of things. The next tool we're going to talk about is a thermometer. And you might be thinking of a thermometer that mom or dad uses to take your temperature when you're not feeling well. And that's exactly what a thermometer is. But most scientists don't use a thermometer for human temperature. They use it to determine the weather, like a meteorologist. So our thermometer is measuring Fahrenheit and Celsius. Here in the United States, we measure temperature in Fahrenheit. So as the red liquid inside goes up, that means it's getting hotter. Our description is this tool measures how hot or cold something is. You might also have a thermometer that you put inside of your meat to make sure the temperature inside is cooked all the way. Or you can put it in liquid sometimes too to determine if it's cold or hot. So some of the things that we might measure with this would be water. We might measure the weather to get the temperature outside. Mom or dad might check you for a fever. Or even the oven has a thermometer. When you go to cook your food, you turn your oven on to a certain temperature to cook properly. All right, the next tool is called a measuring stick. Now this is similar to a measuring tape, except for one big difference. A measuring stick is hard and it cannot measure around an object. We also don't usually have measuring sticks that are super long. So they like to measure usually shorter distances. So this tool is used to measure length, width, height, or depth of an object. So we might measure the length of our desk. You might use a measuring stick to measure the length of your foot. You could use it to measure a book. All of those objects are straight. They don't curve because a measuring stick cannot curve. All right, when you're ready, flip over your paper to talk about the last set of scientific tools. There we go, couldn't get that in there. All right, the last set of scientific tools, starting at the top with a hand lens. Most of you probably know this as a magnifying glass, but a scientist actually calls it a hand lens because you hold it with your hand and the inside is a lens, just like if you have lenses in your glasses. They're used to help you see better. So our tool description is, this tool will magnify or enlarge an object's features. Now we would not use a hand lens for something as small like a germ or a cell or a hair because it doesn't magnify that much. This would be to look something closer, like maybe an insect that I can see with my eye. Or maybe a fossil. We want to look at the fossil a little bit closer, but I can see the fossil with my eye. We might even look at our hand closer and see all these lines in our hands. So a magnifying glass is a little bit not as strong as a microscope is. Now the next object are called forceps. And I bet you guys recognize these, but you don't call them that. You probably call these tweezers. So if you've ever had a splinter before, your mom or dad might have used a pair of tweezers to pull out your splinter. Scientists call them forceps. And that tool is used to help us pick up and hold on to objects. So things that are small, like an insect, we might use the forceps to pick up and hold the insect while we use our hand lens to look at it better. Sometimes scientists, if they're putting together a model, they might use the forceps to hold the parts together. Or even like wood little pieces that they're putting and working. Remember how I said like you might have a stinger from a bee that you have? I'll put from a bee here. So it's used to get smaller objects. We wouldn't use that to pick up large things. And the last one is a dropper. Now, when you were little, you probably had your medicine given to you in a dropper because you had such a small amount that you were supposed to take. So this tool is used to pick up and release small amounts of liquid. Okay, so you wouldn't use a measuring cup for your medicine when you were a baby. You would use a dropper because it was such a small, teeny tiny amount that it was even too small for a spoon. So you had a dropper that you would put in, you squeeze, the liquid shoots up into the dropper. Then when it's ready to release, you let go and the medicine comes back out. So over here, we're going to write small amount of liquid. Remember, think of when you're a baby for this. So this would be drops. And another tool that's for for a dropper might be if you've ever gotten eye drops. You have such a small little teeny drop that you have to put in your eye that they use a dropper for it. All right, guys. So these are just some of the scientific tools that you might come across as we're talking about this or see in a classroom. You're going to be taking a quiz this week, so make sure that you look over this. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention to these tools because some of the other tools that are on here are a calculator, which we might use to add or subtract, a journal. We use that all the time in school to help us take our thoughts and organize our information, a magnet, safety goggles. We talked about that when we talked about the safety of scientists. And a beaker, which is also a graduated cylinder, and something you guys are using right now, a laptop. So that's so we can research information. So these are some of our science tools, and we'll be talking more about them later this week also. Make sure you hold on to these.